Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for August 15th of 2023, and currently we have a slight risk for the eastern United States coast from southern New Jersey into the majority of North Carolina, with a marginal threat around that does extend all the way from Massachusetts into northern Florida, with a little bit of an extension into parts of western New York. This is going to be the main focus for today's forecast. And as for our threats for today, you can see that we do have two areas of a 2% tornado threat for that slight risk extending up into Massachusetts, and for that little extension of the marginal threat into western New York and northern Pennsylvania. As for winds, you can see that we do have a 15%, and as for hail, we do have a 5% hail threat. Before I begin with this segment of today's forecast, I do want to touch on the fact that I haven't really had the proper time to go over the current parameters for today in today's forecast, so some information may be false, and if you do find any false information in today's forecast, please tell me in the comments, and hopefully I will be able to fix them. And please bear with me. I haven't really been able to fix that lately, but hopefully I should be able to fix that soon. So taking a look at our Radar Omega model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, you can see for the slight risk region there is already a severe thunderstorm watch for the particular location, and a few special weather statements and a few severe thunderstorm warnings for that particular location. You can see the main trigger for these storms that are going to be in that slight risk area is going to be the shortwave trough that triggered severe weather development the past 2 days and is now progressing eastward to trigger severe weather development for this slight risk region across the eastern coast. And you can see it does have a very strong veering of the winds here, more so back towards the end of that trough. It is more so a positively tilted trough, with the main base of that trough over here as it moves up across the eastern United States coast. The dip is somewhere across Tennessee and Arkansas and the northern Dixie states, and you can see its exit region is going to be the main region that triggers severe weather development for today. So it isn't going to be getting really that base of the trough, so we shouldn't really see all that much strong shear. However, there should definitely be a little bit of the veering in the winds here to support the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes. And you can see that this jet stream is fairly strong. There is mid-level flow getting it up to the 50 knots. So this will definitely elongate hodographs and allow for the possibility of small to medium hail for this particular location. Taking a look at our composite reflectivity, you can see for the slight risk region, after storms do develop, they are rapidly going to organize into either a line or a cluster of storms. It looks like it's going to be more of a broken line, but still definitely a line. So any ingredients for our different potentials are going to have to be out ahead of that line for them to be usable by the system. But if we focus on the marginal threat that extends into western New York, you can see that we do have an MCV associated with that low pressure system that is moving through the region, and that marginal threat is going to be getting a little bit of some isolated showers and thunderstorms from that MCV across that marginal threat region. And you can see for the marginal threat that does extend into Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, you can see that there isn't really going to be all that much of a threat for on land storms. However, you can see that we do have some thunderstorms that are expected to be moving offshore that could have the possibility of moving onshore. So that is going to be the primary reason for that marginal threat there. And then taking a look at our dew points, focusing on the slight risk region, you can see that we do have some fairly strong dew points for this particular location. Dew points that are going to be getting up into the upper 70s, and I think if we go down further south, we may be even able to see some in the low 80s. However, mostly this is going to be in the upper 70s, but this is still extreme amounts of humidity for this particular location, and will definitely allow for the possibility of very strong instability, possibly getting into the 3000s and maybe even into the 4000s. And you can see this shortwave trough is expected to push a lot of this moisture out into the Atlantic Ocean and really lower the dew points significantly across the eastern United States as a whole, getting them more so down into the 50s and the 60s and possibly the upper 60s. So this shortwave trough is going to, again, push a lot of that intense moisture out into the Atlantic Ocean. And then you can see that we are expected to have another shortwave trough that does move through the region, and this, I think, is going to lower dew points even more across the eastern United States. So overall, our potential for strong instability might begin to decrease over the next few days as strong amounts of humidity is being sent out into the Atlantic Ocean with these 2 rounds of shortwave troughs. Taking a look at our instability, you can see where we had those extremely strong dew points ahead of that shortwave trough. You can see that we also have extremely strong amounts of instability. We are expected to see Cape values that are going to be up to the upper 3,000s and possibly even to the low 4,000s. This will definitely allow for the possibility of some strong damaging winds and the possibility of some small to medium hail with elongated hodographs, as well as the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes with some weak varying of those winds in the mid-level flow. You saw that we did have overall weak veering of the winds. However, it should definitely supply enough directional shear to allow for the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across this particular location. And then you can see back out ahead of that shortwave trough behind the overall slight risk area, you can see that it is expected to, again, rapidly lower our instability across a large portion of the United States and keep K values back down into the double digits and even the triple digits. So you can see that this shortwave trough definitely did lower overall the intense possibilities for strong severe weather across a majority of the United States by pushing a ton of that moisture and instability out into the Atlantic Ocean. And with that other shortwave trough that is expected to move through the region, you can see it doesn't really have all that strong instability ahead of that line either, because of what that trough for today is doing by pushing all that strong instability and moisture out into the Atlantic Ocean. So overall, weaker instability is expected to be ahead of that shortwave trough, the second shortwave trough that moves to the region, and should lower the amount of instability across the United States even more, lowering our potential for strong severe weather. And then taking a look at our energy helicity index readings, focusing on the different 2% tornado threats across the eastern United States coast, you can see that we aren't really expected to have all that very strong directional shear for this particular location, as the varying of the winds ahead of that shortwave trough is expected to be pretty weak, so we shouldn't really see all that crazy strong directional shear to support the possibility of a 5% tornado threat. However, we should definitely see the possibility of directional shear that should support the possibility of that 2% tornado threat. And you can see for that 2% tornado threat across the slight risk area, you can see that we do have some strong energy helicity index readings that would be indicative of that 2% tornado threat region. And again, we could see the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across that 2% tornado threat region. Then if we take a look at the 2% tornado threat area for western New York and northern Pennsylvania, you can see that we aren't really expected to have all that strong energy helicity index readings for that particular location. So overall, our tornado potential might be very, very weak for this particular location, as our lower directional shear seems to be further down south. However, that MCV should be able to supply the possibility of some weak directional shear to support the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across this 2% tornado threat for western New York and northern Pennsylvania. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator, and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you live in any of the areas I covered for severe weather for today, please stay weather alert for the time being, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.